Hi, this is Allison Sheridan of the No Silicast podcast, hosted at podfeet.com, a technology geek podcast with an ever so slight Apple bias. Today is Sunday, September 7th, 2025, and this is show number 1061. Last week, I explained to you why I run multiple disk sweeping apps in order to find the most disk space to recover. I didn't have enough time to let each of the developers read what I was going to say before it hit the podcast, but after they did get a chance to read, several of them gave me some swell additions about their apps. In the original article, I've included them back in that original article with the words breaking news around each section that I added back in. So the updates and corrections are in there if you want to go back and read it. But I want to tell you what I said. So the first one was, after I posted the article, I got a lovely letter back from Disk Graph developer Nick Kick. Among many other topics, he pointed me to a menu option I hadn't noticed under View that says Show List. If Show List is checked, above the graph view, whether it's tree or pie view, you get a column list view of your folders showing their size. As you drill down into the graphical portion, the list view updates to show the details of your new selection. That means Disk Graph actually gives you the best of both worlds, and Nick did take the care to ensure that the list view is accessible to VoiceOver. I am very handy to stand corrected when I originally said that none of the graphical apps were accessible. Nick has proven me wrong, and I'm really glad about that. So Disk Graph is accessible. Now, I have another addendum about Disk Graph after chatting with developer Nick. He pointed me at the layout option under the View menu, which is available when Tree View is selected. I don't know if you remember, but I said that the tree view kind of broke my brain. That layout just didn't make any sense to me. He pointed out that under layout, you can choose between several different ways that these little blocks are laid out. The default, which is what broke my brain a little, is called snake/spiral. I changed it to stack, and then it resembled the way Grand Perspective displays it, which makes more sense to me. You can also choose just snake, which goes left to right by size, or spiral, which spirals in by size. I think it's great that Nick gives us all these options, and he and I have been going back and forth on how maybe to make it more obvious that those are options that are there for you. While he was helping me understand this, he also explained that the gray boxes that mystified me, and I said that they looked like printed circuits, he said that these gray boxes represent a collection of files that individually are too small to display. So when it gets too small, he just makes the pile of whatever's left a little gray box, and that made great sense. All right, next up, by the time I woke up the day after the article was published, Omni Group CEO Ken Case had a test build of Omni Disk Sweeper that is now accessible via VoiceOver and ready for us to test. He posted about this on Mastodon, and I put a link in the show notes directly to it. How great is that? Also, I said that Omni Disk Sweeper would only allow you to scan the entire drive, not a specific folder. Ken pointed out that you can scan a single directory, but you know what? Since it was non-obvious and Allison didn't notice it, he added a dedicated button that says Open Folder right on the first screen you see. I will consider this to be my personal button. Now, I do love to be corrected when I'm wrong, and I love the responsiveness of the developers. One more thing. Remember I said that Grand Perspective's URL at SourceForge was missing the trailing E? So it's Grand Perspective, but instead of having an E after the V, it just cuts right off. So it's grandperspective.sourceforge.net. Well, developer Erwin Bonsma wrote to me to explain that the truncated name is due to a historical name length restriction from SourceForge. Fun facts to know and tell. Anyway, I still stand by all of these products, and I think it was great that we had developer participation in learning more about how they all work. Well, I'm back with part 10 of my Tiny Mac tips. You may remember that this is an ongoing series I started in order to teach Jill from the North Woods how to move from being an adequate Mac user to a proficient one. In case you missed the earlier installments, if you go to the show notes, I've included links to the first 9 installments, and if you go through those, you can find links to exactly what's in every one of those articles. But let's get started with Tiny Mac Tips Part 10. Have you ever been looking at an image on a web page? Maybe it's, pretty small. You'd like to see it as big as possible in its own tab in the browser. You can, right-click on the image, select Copy Image Address, make a new tab, click in the URL bar, paste the link, and hit Enter. There's a faster way. If you're using Safari, and if you have at least one other tab open in your browser, simply click and drag the image up to the tab bar. The image will automatically open as big as possible in that tab. Now, it'll actually replace the existing tab when you do that if you do it in Safari. But if you're using Firefox or, say, a Chromium browser like Microsoft Edge, when you drag the image to the tab bar, it creates a new tab for the image. This tiny tip also works with URLs. Click and drag on any URL and just pull it into the tab bar to automatically open the link. No more right-clicking on a URL and choosing Open a New Tab. Now, this was definitely not a life-changing tip, but it's kind of an interesting way to open images and links that might be a bit easier than all that right-clicking and finding the option in the contextual menu. The next Tiny Mac tip is life-changing. That's if you consider saving maybe a few seconds on an operation you do hundreds of times a year to be life-changing. I'm sure you know that with any document or web page, if you choose Print from the File menu, you'll see an option at the bottom that says PDF, and it has a little drop-down chevron. If you click on that drop-down chevron, it gives you several different options, one of which is Save as PDF. I have been using this drop-down to save documents to PDF for ages and ages. And then, I was listening to the Mac Geek Gab when Pilot Pete pointed out something I did not know. Instead of clicking on the downward chevron next to the word PDF to get the drop-down, turns out the word PDF is actually a button, and it instantly opens the Save dialog box. Using the button saves not just one click, but two, every single time you want to save a file as a PDF. Maybe this is one of the ones where you're going to say, geez, Al, everyone knew that but you. But you know what? It made me so darn happy when I heard about it, I wanted to share it with you. Our next Tiny Mac tip comes from David Price, a NoSillicastaway, who wrote this up as a comment to my post about cleaning up contacts with smart lists a year ago. I have had this set aside for the next installment of Tiny Mac tips all this time, but it's been almost a year since I did these. Let's say you have someone in your contacts and you want to know whether they're in your vacation emails list for your international adventures, or maybe are they in your contacts list for Christmas cards. How would you figure out if someone was already in a list? David has the answer, and I'll quote him directly as he explains his steps really well. Stretch your contacts window so it's tall enough to view all of your lists in the left sidebar. Click on All Contacts at the top of your list. Scroll your contacts or search until you find the specific contact you're looking for and click on that person. Now, hold down the Option key and all of the lists the specific contact belongs to will turn blue. Now, this tip is very useful when working with lists. He says he has 37 lists and 12 smart lists. He has 6,674 contacts. He says, I don't bother deleting contacts. That's why I have so many. I found that the weight of my iPhone stays the same no matter how many contacts I squeeze into it. And the performance doesn't slow down, so why spend time deleting? Well, I think this is a terrific Tiny Mac tip, and thanks to Dave for sending it in. If you want to start a holy war in computing, it's pretty easy. Start an argument between Emacs versus VI or Vim. You could talk about tabs versus spaces. The list goes on and on. We'll fight about anything. But the hill I will die on is that column view in macOS Finder is the right view. I know a lot of people think list view is superior, but I find it a dreadful waste of clicking and scrolling when folders get deep and full of files. The only time I ever use list view is when I need to sort by one column. In list view, it's really easy. You just click on the column title and you're sorted. Adam Christensen, also on the Mac Geek Gab, explained that you can sort in column view too. When he said that, my ears perked up. The trick is to find some empty space to right-click. Let's say you've got a column of files in a folder. If there's any space below the list, empty space, you can right-click there, and in the contextual menu, you'll see this Sort By option. Now, you don't have infinite sorting options, but the usual suspects are there, like date last opened, date added, date modified, date created. You've also got kind, size, tags, and a few others. Now, if you don't have space below the column of files and folders that you're in, don't select any folder, and the empty column to the right can bring up this same contextual menu as well. The interesting thing is that this sort by criterion applies to all Finder windows in their column view. This often confuses me when I open another window, so be sure to put it back to the sort you normally like, say by name, when you're done. Now that we can sort files and folders in my beloved column view, there's no reason to even continue the discussion about which view is better. When I'm editing images in macOS and Apple Photos, I have a tendency to swing the sliders too dramatically. I do this most often with things like vibrance and saturation. After you've seen vibrance dialed up to 75%, 100% can look even better. But in reality, that's way, way, way too much. One of the easy ways to make sure you're not overdoing it is to revert back to the original and let your eyes adjust so you can see how dramatic your changes have been. But then you have to redo the changes to get back to where you were. There's an easier way, and it's by simply holding down the M key on your keyboard. While you're holding it down, you can see the original, and when you let go, your adjustments are reapplied. You can toggle it back and forth as many times as you like. Now, in the upper left, there is a toggle button that looks like a solid square and a hollow square separated by a vertical line. This button does the same thing as the M key. When you click it, you'll see the screen blink, but if you hold it down, you'll see the original, and when you let go, you'll see your changes again. This tip undoes all of your changes temporarily. If you'd like to be more granular in seeing the before and after view of just one set of editing controls, look for a little blue check mark that appears as soon as you make any changes. You can then toggle off and back on just that one control's changes. I found both of these methods, the M key and the blue check mark, invaluable in seeing when I've gone too far with my adjustments in Apple Photos. I've got a fun tiny Mac tip for the true control freaks amongst us. On a standard Mac keyboard, you have dedicated keys for brightness up and down and for volume up and down. If the increments you get when changing brightness or volume are not fine-grained enough for you, hold down Option-Shift while hitting those keys, and you get a quarter step change instead. I have racked my brains trying to think of a single circumstance when I've ever needed this level of control, and I can't think of one, but I thought you still deserve to learn about it. Now here's a more mainstream companion tip. If you use the volume up-down keys while audio is playing, it's easy to hear the change you're making. But what if you want to set the volume while audio is not playing? Hitting the keys doesn't make any sound. However, if you hold the Shift key down while you make the changes, you get a little boop sound so you can hear the volume changing. I keep forgetting that the Shift key does this, so I'm hoping telling you about it will help cement it in my memory. Now, system settings has become a quagmire these days. While most settings are hard to find and they're buried deep within this chasm, if you hold down the Option key and tap on one of the volume keys, mute, lower, or higher volume, system settings will automatically launch right into sound settings. So Option and hit any one of the sound buttons and boom, you're into system settings set to sound. Likewise, the Option key plus either the brightness keys opens system settings to displays, where you can adjust the brightness and more. Now that's a lot for one tiny tip, so let's review. Option plus brightness or volume opens system settings to the appropriate setting. Shift plus volume keys to hear the changes you're making. Option Shift with brightness or volume to embrace your inner control freak. We've talked about the usefulness of the Get Info window before, but here's another hidden in plain sight gem. You can create template files by using the Get Info window. Let's do this one by example. Let's pretend that you need a template for taking meeting notes. Open TextEdit and create a new rich text format file. Let's create some headings like meeting title, key takeaways, action items, and notes. Then make them bold. In between the headings, let's put a numbered list under key takeaways, an unordered list under action items, and then for notes, we'll just have random text. Save the file as meetingtemplate.rtf and close the file. Now in Finder, select the file and use Command-I to open Get Info. Under the General section, which may be closed by its disclosure triangle and you might have to open it up, below the kind, size, and date created and modified, you'll see a small checkbox that says Stationery Pad. Check that box. Now, double-click your meeting template file and notice that the name of the file that opens is now Meeting Template Copy. This means that when you save under a new name, you are not overwriting your template file. Now, this cool tip isn't just for text files. Try it out with any other application that works with single files in the file system. I checked it with tools from Apple Numbers to Affinity Designer, and it worked. The Stationery Pad capability has been available in Get Info for ages and ages. Like I said, hiding in plain sight. If you've been using a Mac for a long time, now is your opportunity to say, I knew that. But remember, the purpose of Tiny Mac Tips is to give users who are relatively new to the Mac maybe a leg up on all of the little ways that we make magic happen with our Macs. You know how Mac users, when pitching how great the Mac is, we all pretend nothing ever goes wrong and we don't know anything that's fiddly with it. We all know that's not true. Sometimes an app will hang, becoming non-responsive, and eventually you'll see the dreaded pizza wheel of death. The solution to this problem is to force quit the application. With any application in focus, go to the Apple menu and choose Force Quit, or use the keystroke Option Command Escape. A window will appear displaying the list of running applications. If you look at it when no apps are misbehaving, it will look like a normal list. But if an app is truly hung, the words "not responding" will be written right next to the name. Simply select the misbehaving app and click the Force Quit Application button. With any luck, relaunching the application will get you back in business. You can also force quit by selecting the application in the dock while holding down Control and Option. But what if the app that's misbehaving isn't a normal app? What if it's a menu bar app that misbehaves? They don't show up in the force quit window. Then it's time to break out the big guns, Activity Monitor. This app, if you haven't played with it before, is in the Utilities folder inside Applications. When Activity Monitor launches, you'll see 5 tabs across the top: CPU, Memory, Energy, Disk, and Network. These are 5 different ways to view all of the running processes on your Mac. On each tab, you can tap the various column headings to sort by that value. If you want to make the list more manageable, you can go to the View menu and change it from All Processes to My Processes. This is valuable when you know the problem is an app you are intentionally running and want to weed out some of the more mysterious macOS demons such as like MDS and Core Audio D. Those are always fun. Now, if you sort by percentage CPU, you're quite likely to find the misbehaving app near the top, but however you sort, you can simply scroll till you find an app in red text. Select the app, and in the toolbar of Activity Monitor, tap the first icon. It looks like a little stop sign octagon with an X in it. This will bring up a window offering to simply quit the app, but you can also change it to force quit the app. Now, the beauty of force quitting apps from Activity Monitor is sometimes they come with little helper apps that are also running and need to be stopped. To see all of the associated processes, sort by process name. In the example I put in the screenshot in the show notes, you can see that 1Password actually has 9 active processes. Killing only the main app process might kill the rest, but sometimes one of the associated processes will also get stuck. You could shift select all of the items and force quit them all together. Now that you've learned how to force quit applications on the Mac, remember the secret code though. Always tell non-Mac users nothing ever goes wrong on the Mac. This next solution was explained in my article entitled "All My Travelogues Are Belong to You" that I published in May 2025, but I wanted to pull this one piece out as a standalone tip. The problem to be solved is that you've created a PDF with images in it, and the resulting file is massive. That is certainly the problem I have when I create my travelogues from our international adventures. Our Japan trip wasn't super long, and yet my travelogue was a whopping 85 megabytes because all of the high-resolution images embedded within. With very little effort, you can reduce the file size of PDFs without a perceptible visual change to the images in the document. Now, this is assuming you've embedded high-resolution images, but they can't really be displayed that well in a PDF anyway, so you're just wasting space. I'm going to give you the basic steps, and then we'll go through a worked example together. With your massive PDF open in Preview, from the menu bar, choose File, Export. In the resulting Save dialog box, leave the format set to PDF. Below that is another dropdown labeled Quartz Filter. The Quartz Filter dropdown contains quite a few options you can play around with, including exports such as black and white, blue, gray, or sepia tone. But the one we're interested in is called Reduce File Size. When I used this trick on my Japan travelogue, it reduced the file size from 85 megabytes to 36 megabytes. Now, let's do this worked example together so you can see it in action. Open Apple Pages. You can download it for free from the Mac App Store if you haven't already. Start a new document, and when it offers to let you start with a template, choose the one called School Newsletter. We're going to use this template because it's easy to drop photos into placeholders. Save the file, and then from Finder, do a get info on it and see how big it is. It should be around 300 kilobytes, not megabytes, kilobytes. Now, with the school newsletter open up your photos library and just drag in random full-resolution photos from your camera roll into Pages on top of each of the placeholders. They each have an image icon, and they say something like, drag your own photos onto any image placeholders. There should be 3 little round image placeholders and then 2 bigger ones. When you've replaced all of the image placeholders, save the file again, and now check the file size again from the Finder. The size will depend on the complexity and resolution of the images you dragged in, but the file should be tens of megabytes now. Mine became 28.7 megabytes with just those 5 images embedded into that Pages file. So next, we're going to print the file to PDF. And we're going to use the tip we did before, of course, to do it. And then again, we're going to check the file size. My PDF was about the same size as the Pages version, weighing in at 28.3 megabytes, a little bit bigger. We're finally at the fun step. With that PDF open in Preview, go to File, Export, choose the Quartz filter for reduce file size. Save the exported file to a new name, just in case it doesn't look as good as you'd hoped. Pro tip, I always add something like reduced to the end so I can tell which one is which. When I used reduce file size with my 5-image school newsletter file, the resulting export PDF was a grand total of 563 kilobytes. That's 50 times smaller than it was before we did the reduce file export. Now, you might be wondering why the Japan travelogue only went down by a factor of 2.5, but this newsletter was down by a factor of 50. Well, the image placeholders on this template are wee tiny. They're little tiny circles, 3 of them at least, so the huge images can be compressed down much further than they can be in my travelogues. Because I'm a scientist, I printed both versions of the PDF for the newsletter on my color laser printer just to see if I could tell the difference in real life. I didn't spend money on good paper, but I got to tell you, these 2 files, 28 megabytes and what was it I said it was, 563 kilobytes? The 2 pieces of paper looked identical to me. Now, maybe you've got tons of disk space, maybe your data isn't capped, and maybe you have high-speed internet. You don't have to worry about storage on your mail provider. But you know what? The people you send your PDFs to with images in them will surely appreciate that you took the care to make the files small and snappy without perceptibly lowering the image quality. Whew, that was a lot of Tiny Mac tips. That was 9 of them. That was a pretty heavy lift. But I think each one of them was relatively simple. Plus, you know what? It's been 10 months and I gave you any tiny tips, so I think it was worth telling you about them all. Well, did anyone notice last week when I said I was singing the praises of the 9-year Patreon donors from 2016? Yeah, I did the math wrong. Those were the 2018 donors, so it should have been 7 years of dedicated patronage. You know, for somebody who got A's in calculus, you'd think adding and subtracting 1 would be easier for me. But that's not the case. Let's see if I can do this week's correctly. While I thank those who've been donating for 6 solid years since 2019, we have Helma, Dean, Greg, Klaus, Francis, Frank, and Ryan. Thank you to all of you for being part of the Cool Kids Club for so long. Well, it's that time of the week again. It's time for Chit Chat Across the Pond. This is episode number 820 for August 26, 2025, and I'm your host, Allison Sheridan. This week, our guest is Adam Engst of Tidbits Fame and Fortune. How are you today, Adam?
Tidbits Fame and Fortune. There was fortune? I was promised fortune? Man.
Yes, the great Tidbits empire.
Wrong. Yeah, right. And the fame is definitely in kind of an off way for a slow night. So, we'll go with that what we can, but in any event.
Well, hey, Apple came out recently with a new option for AppleCare. They're calling AppleCare One. And we're going to talk about AppleCare in general, but then kind of delve into what appear to be some significant pitfalls of AppleCare One that we kind of want to maybe warn you about if you haven't already jumped into trying to do it. So, Adam, when you think about AppleCare, like you're advising, say, your friends and family, people you like to influence, how do you describe AppleCare to them?
That's actually a sort of a good question. I'm not sure I've really thought about it, but I mean, I guess I would say basically extended warranty.
Right. At which point they go, no, I don't do extended warranties.
Precisely.
Exactly. That's how I do it.
And so because extended warranty is like, whenever you're offered an extended warranty on, your $30 coffee maker or something, I'm like, seriously? I'm never going to get this thing replaced or repaired or any, whatever. So, but yeah, so I actually really don't usually describe it. I usually just say it's AppleCare. Kind of because for that reason. And part of that is because it's evolved a bit over the years, but what we have now is called AppleCare Plus.
Are they all AppleCare Plus? Like,
Well,
is there
there's AppleCare Plus, and then there's AppleCare Plus with theft and loss protection. With theft
Okay.
and loss, sorry, just
Yeah.
is the actual name. And what I don't remember, it's an interesting question. We should ask some chatbot this. I don't remember when it switched to AppleCare Plus from AppleCare and what that difference was.
I seem to
Uh,
remember it might have been when they said you would pay essentially a deductible for getting the repair done, and you got 2 of them per year or per length of the term. I forget exactly what it was, but I feel like that was when the change happened.
yeah, the um, can't quite type and do that at the same time. So yeah, it was kind of a AppleCare for a long time had been literally just like the extending the warranty.
Mhm.
And I think you're right that basically then with AppleCare Plus, Apple said, well, there's things that wouldn't be covered with the warranty, but we would insure you against them. So, yeah, it's the accidental damage protection. That's what it was. And then later on, the theft and loss, although Apple built that into the name. So,
So
so
those are 2
basically,
different plans you have to choose between.
precisely,
Wonder which ones I
precisely. So you got
have.
AppleCare Plus and AppleCare Plus with theft and loss,
Mhm.
but you can no longer choose between them.
Oh,
You used to be able to.
maybe that's why I don't remember.
That's why you don't remember because, well, in fact, you might even still have things that are AppleCare Plus only,
Mhm.
um, and you can only get AppleCare Plus with theft and loss for the iPhone and now the iPad and Apple Watch.
Oh, but
So you
not
can't
like a
get that
MacBook
for a
Pro?
Mac.
Oh,
Nope, can't
really?
get it for a MacBook Pro.
Okay.
Nope.
Okay.
So, yeah, so it's kinda it got more complicated, as well, and some of these changes have happened only quite recently. The other thing that changed fairly recently is you used to be able to buy AppleCare, for, like, a laptop for, 2 or 3 years in one fell swoop, which was a cheap way of doing it because you got more of a discount if you bought it for 3 years at purchase time, and I did that even in June with my MacBook Pro, but it's not available anymore.
Oh my gosh. So I didn't realize that had gotten away. I've always done it as a one fell swoop.
You
That's
can do
gone
that
now.
for a year, but you can't do it for 2 or 3 years. Is Again, my understanding, I can't see any way of doing that. I didn't actually, like, buy a new MacBook Pro to find that out, but it was true in June that I was able to get it, and I can't in any way figure out how to do that now.
So you've gone in and said, "Let me pretend I'm buying a new MacBook Air,"
Yeah.
and when it offers you
Yeah.
AppleCare, you can't do it for 3
You
years?
get Yeah, precisely.
Before we
'Cause
get too far into this, we, should just make
the weeds.
a quick side load that I'm pretty sure in Europe, you're guaranteed 2 years of warranty on stuff like this, so,
Oh.
AppleCare only takes you from 2 to 3 years, not from 1 to 3 years.
Oh, interesting, okay. Yeah, I didn't know that.
I believe
So
that's
so
true.
yeah, so it becomes this real question of like, okay, how much do you want to spend? And also, AppleCare also used to be one of those things like you bought it and it was good for a certain amount of time and then it just ended. And then
Right.
Apple's like, well, you could just keep buying it. And then they were like, you could pay for us monthly or you could pay us annually. And so it got much more complicated. And I think some of the impetus behind AppleCare One was to just like make it simple. Unfortunately, they didn't really quite succeed in that in certain ways, but
Before
that
you go
was, I
into
think,
this
the
the
impetus.
simplicity, I've just verified what you said. If you go to buy a MacBook Air right now,
Mhm.
for AppleCare Plus, you have the option of buying monthly coverage until canceled or annual coverage until canceled, and that's it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So no more 3-year plan.
But then again, that's kinda nice because it used to stop at 3 years,
Yeah,
and it would
but
be
that's
better to be
because
able
in
to
part
continue.
well, no, yeah, maybe, maybe not.
I mean,
I
to
mean,
have the
that's the
option.
whole thing. Well, they allowed you to continue they allowed you to re-up at some point. Again, this is thinking back, a couple of years, but they did change it so that you could keep paying.
Right. Originally, it was 3
And
years and you're done. Then it was 3
3 years and
years
you're
and
totally done.
you could go b I think you had to
Right.
go into a month to month or something like that, but it sounds like
Well,
it's
yeah, yeah,
year you
precisely.
could do.
But 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 I mean, that's one of those such questions of like, well, do you insure the 3-year-old machine?
Mhm. Right, but you had I like
Because
having the option.
yeah. So
Alright.
any event, yeah. So now your choices are just until you cancel,
I would
monthly or annual.
I'll tell you why they did it. when I gave my iPhone 14 to my daughter, she was about to be giving it back to me, but she had cracked the screen. And I said, you know what? You're coming right up on the 3 years. I want you to just enable the month to month on that until you get it fixed, so that it keeps going. Don't let it lapse because you're about to lapse. So make sure you do that before it lapses. And she did. And then like a month ago, I got an email from Apple saying, okay, we just processed your month to month on the iPhone 14, which I've now had in a drawer for 2 years. I think that's the first time they've ever reminded me that I've been paying that all the time, and I have no idea. It's just like, oh man, that's why they do it. That's why they do that month to month until canceled.
Well, and let's face it, we were mocking extended warranties to start, and the fact is that all of these kinds of things, companies do them because they make money.
Mm-hmm.
Apple's not doing this out of the goodness of their heart because it makes life so much easier for us users. They're doing it to make money, and so that's really where a lot of this stuff comes in. That like, should you even be bothering to buy AppleCare for an iPhone 14 that has been in a drawer for 2 years? No, of course not. Right? That's just silly. But Apple wants to make that all the more possible all the time, and so that's a little bit of where AppleCare 1 comes from, right?
Yeah.
Well, you could insure that shelf of old devices.
To be fair, yeah, that is exactly what it is insurance. I pay a lot for my homeowner's insurance for theft, and I pay higher rates because I want to make sure my jewelry's insured and things like that. I don't have to do that, but I choose to, and I know that they're making money. But the loss could be huge compared to what it is you're paying, and so you make that trade-off.
Precisely.
And nobody's wrong in what they
question.
pick. Nobody's wrong. If you pick not to do it, you're not wrong. If I pick to do it, I'm not wrong.
And that's always the question, is sort of like, how much can you afford to replace? And how much are you willing to pay for not having to pay to replace something that's broken or damaged or whatever?
And Dave Hamilton calls it self-insuring. and he'll maybe keep one spare iPhone back so that everybody, if somebody's phone gets broken or lost or damaged, they have a phone.
Yeah, I mean, I've used the term as well, and when I've been writing about it, although I was sort of reflecting that, I mean, self-insuring, you would actually want to be paying yourself in some weird little way.
Putting
like, I'm
money
going to set
into a
this
little
money
account.
aside, just in case I break my iPhone. Then oh look,
Actually,
I'm good now.
Now that would be a smart thing to do, to say, okay, I'm going to buy this MacBook Air, and it's $70 a year for AppleCare. I'm going to put $70 a year into a little bank account, and I'm going to do it for my iPhone, and I'm going to do it for my whatever. And then if any one of them breaks, I've got that pot of money to go from.
Yep. I mean, it's one of those funny things, because it's funny how we think of it that way. I mean, of course, money's just fungible, right? Like, you have it in your bank account. Like, whether you can afford this or not.
Right.
You might not want to afford it, but you probably know.
Yeah.
And so, but nonetheless, I mean, I think that's where all the decisions come from, is what feels like a reasonable cost for how much it's going to save you in terms of time and headache and waiting and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
So, when I'm asked about, well, should I get AppleCare iPhone? Yes. Like, wow, is that easy to drop? So easy to drop, particularly
Also,
if you don't have a case.
If you don't have a case, there you go.
I mean, like, I see people without phones and without cases, and half the time that they've got significant dings or broken screens or whatever, and I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm really careful, and I still drop my iPhone 3-5 times a year.
Yeah, absolutely, it does happen.
And
we had bought three new
iPhones.
iPhones one year. It was my daughter and my son and myself all bought new iPhones at the same time, and within 48 hours, all three of us had dropped them. And I hadn't bought AppleCare. All three of us broke them. And I walked in and I told the story and I said, I meant to, didn't, sorry. And they said, all right, we'll put you AppleCare on it now as long as you do this repair. And so we learned our lesson that day. All right.
That's good customer service.
Yes. They don't do that anymore.
Why, it looks like you did buy AppleCare. How good of you.
Exactly. All right, so now I'm
Um,
glad we did this history of AppleCare because it is important to understand all these different ways it has changed over
yeah,
time. And I always wondered, was there one I was supposed to be buying with theft and loss? But now I know it's all in AppleCare Plus. And no,
yeah.
I can only do annually on these things. That's good to know. But now explain to us what AppleCare One is supposed to be, and then we'll get into what it turns out actually happens.
Well, so AppleCare One is meant to be simple. It's like 19.99 a month, and you'll cover 3 devices.
Hmm.
So if you have, your iPhone, your iPad, and your Mac, your MacBook Pro, boom, 19.99 a month, you're probably making out pretty well because those 3 devices, if you insure them individually, will almost certainly be more than 19.99 a month.
Right.
Um, and the you can also add additional devices for 5.99 a month. So you can go to 4 or 5 or whatever.
So adding a second
And
Mac would be only $5.99 more.
precisely.
Okay.
And those devices, these extra devices, can be up to 4 years old. So, if you have one that, oh yeah, you got the 2 years and it lapsed and you didn't re-up and whatnot, you can bring that one back into the fold
Do
and
they
and insure
test
it
you to
again.
whether it's still functioning?
It's a little unclear. They sort of say that they may require a diagnostic check.
Okay.
Not clear how they do that. I haven't heard from anyone who's had one done yet.
Okay.
Um, so, so on the face of it, that's a really good thing, right? Like like yes, if I'm paying these 3 or 4 AppleCare Plus individual bills, consolidating them into one 19.99 or 20 $5.99, whatever, $26.98, whatever that works out to, payment could be a fairly significant savings and also just a little bit less to deal with, right? I mean, one of the annoying things about all these monthly things is you have to like account for them monthly. They come in on a credit card, or you have to balance their statement here or there. So that might be a little simpler too. So that's
And
the idea.
let's say
And,
you've
and
got
it follows through with that.
a Vision Pro, $25 a month by itself. So could be really a good deal if you've got one of those.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so now that's really sort of the theory. In execution, we've been hearing John Syracuse is probably the most vocal person out there explaining exactly what's gone wrong for him. But I've also heard anecdotally in some user groups about fairly similar problems. Let me start with the middle of the problem, which is when you're signing up, it'll offer to let you put devices onto your AppleCare One plan that you're not eligible to put on your AppleCare One plan. So a woman that I know was offered, hey, you can put this Apple Vision Pro onto your plan. And she went, oh, that's awesome. That's going to save me a fortune. It's my husband's. That's great. And then it kicked him off. And once you get out of the plan you were already in, you can't go back into that plan for that same rate. So all of a sudden it was a
Or you
massive.
may not be able to.
Yeah,
You may not be able
she
to.
was
Yeah,
unable
yeah.
to. It was over $200
Yeah.
a year more she was going to be paying for AppleCare
Oof.
afterwards.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know that she did the math right, so let's call it like 150, but it was an extraordinary
Yeah.
amount of money she lost.
Yeah, I mean, it's unclear to me exactly how it identifies which devices it thinks you can add, but I think it's doing it, my guess is doing it by, like, stuff that you purchased. But just because, I mean, like, I purchase all of the Apple hardware for me and for Tanya, but, just because that way it keeps it all in one account, and so sometimes we feel like that's useful,
Yeah.
from Apple's perspective. But, of course, once I give it to her, it's her device, not my device, and so that seems to be the other big one that John Syracuse ran into.
Right, right. So the problem
Oh,
he's
no, sorry, his was still the same device. I'm sorry, he was hitting, multiple accounts. But so yes, what people are hitting is that if it's not your device logged into your Apple account, then you start getting dinged. Apple starts sending you this email like every day, multiple times a day, sometimes saying, we're going to kick you off. We're going to kick you off.
and it gives you
And then
24 hours to comply.
yeah,
If you don't, well, it's
you will comply. Resistance is futile.
so if it's really not your device, it seems to kick you off. It just kicks it out, I think.
Okay.
But
Okay.
then,
Is that what it does? Yeah.
the weird problem that John's running into, so John Siracusa, his wife has Mac Studio, and Mac Studio, right? That's what it's called? I get confused by the monitor name. Yeah, the Mac Studio. And he bought it on his Apple ID, and he has a login on that machine. She happens to be the primary user of that machine, but he has an account, and he is always logged in. And he keeps getting this threatening email from Apple telling him, if you don't comply in 24 hours and prove that go log in, then you're gonna lose this coverage.
Yeah. 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 It's and other people, it's not 100%, but a number of other people have kind of chimed in with similar kinds of things, basically noting that if you have multiple accounts on your Mac that log into different Apple accounts, I got to trying to retrain my brain, that will confuse AppleCare 1. And, and actually he also suggested that could happen with an Apple TV, because you can have multiple Apple accounts on an Apple TV.
You can?
You can.
I didn't know.
So that way you're different users from Apple's perspective.
I don't think I knew that.
No one does this. But you can do it. There's really no point.
Okay.
But.
Okay, you could. Okay.
But yeah, think about it. If you're two completely separate people and you have completely separate Apple accounts, you don't want Apple TV to be doing the same things for each person.
Okay.
In some ways is neither here nor there, just because I can't imagine that many people are doing it.
Yeah, that would definitely be an edge case.
Because getting AppleCare for an Apple TV, again, is on the low end of the utility scale. So
right, but multiple users on a Mac is real common, right?
It is. Very common.
Maybe you should do one of your world-famous tidbit polls to find out.
Ooh, there's a thought.
Wouldn't it be an interesting one? Do you have multiple?
And like, even if you're the only user, I have multiple accounts on my Mac, and they're all me.
Mm-hmm. I have 3. I always keep a clean account for testing if something goes hooey in my regular account, and then I have my Screencast Online account. So that's definitely a separate Apple ID. So if I put my MacBook Pro onto AppleCare 1, I would probably get kicked off.
Yep. And then there's my parents who they share a Mac Mini, and they each have their own account.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the way it's built. It's a multi-user operating system, for goodness sakes.
Right.
And, they have very different things. They do very different things, and they just switch back and forth using fast user switching. That's what it's for.
Right.
And so who knows how, that would work in it, but it doesn't seem like it would be very good. One of them would get AppleCare and the other one would get dinged.
Yeah, that's a good question. But it's baffling that they didn't think of this. But in case anybody's wondering, John went as far as he had the MacBook, the Mac Studio needed the latest OS update. So he ran the OS update, he rebooted, which meant no other users, not his kids and not his wife, were logged into this machine. It was only him, and he got the email telling him that a new user had just logged in, and you better comply with this in 24 hours. And it was coming to the account that he was sitting on that machine. So now you heard this and I didn't catch it. John Siracusa, if anybody doesn't know him from Accidental Tech Podcast, is the most measured, intelligent, calm, thoughtful guy you could ever hope to meet. And he posted on Mastodon what was basically, it could be interpreted as a string of obscenities. It was hand gestures. It was just like losing his ever-loving mind on it. And apparently he eventually did call AppleCare, and I hadn't heard that he had talked to AppleCare yet, but you posted about it on Tidbits, and that's where I learned it. So what happened?
So he basically, again, I can only imagine these conversations. I've had these too. You're talking to some poor support person, and you know more than they do, but you need their help.
Sure.
And so there's always the tricky problem of like, you really don't tell me to restart. Just please don't tell me to restart. I've already restarted.
Log out of Apple, out of iCloud and back in. No.
Yeah, right. I'm not going to do it. So the AppleCare support representative said, you are not imagining this. This is a problem. They even kind of said, and speaking for myself, not for Apple, like, yeah, we're getting a lot of calls about this. So this was kind of broken, but basically all they could really come up with was cancel AppleCare 1 and re-enroll each individual device in what's available now.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's
And
what this other
there's your
woman got too,
problem.
right?
So for instance, because like I was looking when I wrote about AppleCare One the first time, um, I was kind of doing the math, and I was like, well, like I've got my MacBook Pro, but I've got that on a 3-year plan, and I've got my iPhone 16 Pro, which I think I was able to get back when you could choose between AppleCare Plus and AppleCare Plus with theft and loss, and I chose not with theft and loss. So I'm
Mm,
only paying $10 a month for that one.
okay.
So like so you can't go back to those plans once they're canceled. And if you
'Cause they
paid
don't
for
exist.
3 years in advance, hopefully they have to refund you the money in some way, but they can't refund you the the difference in a monthly cost.
Right, I think
And
when you
so
sign up for AppleCare One, you get the refund of that, but then when you go back out and you're screwed, you're just
right,
screwed.
you're just screwed.
Oh, you said they
And
can't.
so
They haven't chosen to.
right, yes. Anything is possible. You could merge Apple accounts. Really, that should be possible. Um, so, so in any event, what John Siracusa basically so I forget, he said I think he was gonna end up paying like $48 a year more
Yeah. Yeah,
than he would normally, and, which is kind of a lot,
right.
and that was before and I think and then it would have been 6 that was he was only that little because he stopped insuring something he would have otherwise.
Oh,
It would
wow.
have been $60 a year otherwise, and so the, it's one of those situations where Apple, to their credit, again, they did try to make it up to him, but they did it in a kinda half-baked way where they said, "You can pick an accessory from the Apple online store, that's up to $200 in cost," which is
Well,
just sort of weird, right?
that's not nothing. That's
It's
better
not
than
nothing, but it's weird. You're being charged for one thing, and they're gonna give you some other thing, not just a credit. Why don't they give you a credit on your account? Like
because they'd have to do math on what that credit should be for, and $200 is more than he's lost. I mean, that's not
for a couple
terrible.
years, yeah. I said it's not terrible,
Could you
but,
buy,
I
like,
mean, he wasn't even
4
able to
watch bands?
but remember, it was up to 200,
Yeah.
and so he didn't really need anything. He ended up buying something for his wife that she thought she might wanna try for 150.
Hmm.
So, I mean, usually, like, if you think about it, I had some issue with T-Mobile recently, and they charged me some unnecessary fee for whatever. I think it was like our auto withdrawal stopped working because their system didn't properly flip the 2 bank accounts when we added a new bank account, and I called them. They're like, "Oh, we're so sorry. We've reversed that charge, and it'll come off on your next bill." Thank you. Like that's the way you do this sort of thing. You deal with it in the account. It's like,
Right.
"Hey, let me go pick something off the shelf and give it to you," is weird.
Yeah,
It's just like it's just not the same thing. I mean, yes, I get that like they did a good job, like in some sense of like not just saying it sucks to be
pound
you,
sand. Yeah.
but it's still weird to be, trading atoms for bits.
Yeah, that is a very different thing. I just noticed Beats Fit Pro are $200. I would have picked that. Those are my favorite headphones. But
Well,
if you don't need
if you already
headphones,
have one, you're like, "But I have headphones. I don't need more headphones," right? Yeah,
what the $48?
so yeah, so in any event, it was, it feels like someone pushed this through without really thinking about it at all.
Yeah, now one of the
Um,
things that ATP, really excels at is assigning motive without any information. So they said the motive or the reason in this case, not motive in this one, but the reason is because no person working at Apple has ever had to share a computer. So they don't know that exists. I was like, I don't know. I mean, they clearly didn't program it to include this, or I think part of it too is the messaging. I mean, you should not be offered to put something onto your AppleCare One that you can't put on your AppleCare One. Full stop.
just
That's just
full stop.
really bad. I mean, I'm picturing the class action lawsuit for each person that lost $50 or $150 because of this. How much did this end up costing people? This is to me is a really bad look. So if you're looking for today, somebody says, "Hey, I heard about this cool AppleCare One thing. It's only $20 a month. What should I do?" Or 25.
Sorry.
What's that?
Run and hide. No.
So you would say, don't do it. Don't even try.
Well, so no, it's not that. It's that it basically before we knew that it was going to have this problem, it was still a real question. So for me, because I was only paying $9.99 a month for my iPhone and I bought my MacBook Pro's AppleCare for 3 years, it made no sense.
Right.
Like I wasn't, and yes, I could insure something else, but I don't consider an Apple Watch worth insuring. They're not, I mean,
even though you can break it so easily?
Well, that's the thing is, I've had Apple Watches since they came out. I've never broken one, and I'm not particularly gentle on them.
A lot of people get swollen batteries,
durable.
though, and that's been covered after the first year.
But, yeah, it can happen. But again, they're also they're not that expensive.
They're self-insuring.
Right. What it comes down to is I'm going to insure things where I feel like, ooh, that would hurt to replace. Like, the $1,100 iPhone 16 Pro, I'd really rather not spend another $1,100 if I drop it today. Right. I can afford it, but, it would be nice if I break the screen with a bad drop or something like that to pay $29 or whatever they charge for the screen repair instead of, having to go for a full-on one. And similarly, I think that, that laptops in general, particularly when everyone asks me about students, I was like, buy AppleCare before you finish checking, before you buy the actual thing, buy AppleCare first, then buy the laptop.
Advance. As you're picking up your roll of bubble wrap to put it in.
Right. Having watched, we did that with our son when he went to Cornell he'd gotten a new MacBook then. And I think it took him about 6 months to accidentally close it while the headphone jack was sitting on the keyboard.
Oh.
Yep. Broke the screen really quickly.
I can't say that's a student behavior. I could easily see me doing that.
Oh no, but it was just but that's the thing is I fully expect a student to do something like that. Plus they're just schlepping it around,
Yeah, they're schlepping
backpacks, all day, every day. It's gonna break. It just is.
I have so many stories of where I've done it. I brought a new MacBook Pro home, and I was still using, I was doing some work, so I had my work laptop up connected to my display, and I had these 2 laptops I needed to transfer from my old laptop to the new one, and I wanted to do it while I was working. And I'd run out of desk space with 3 laptops on the desk, and I had a speakerphone and that was used, it was made for a car where you could stick it to your visor as a speakerphone, and I had no place to set it, and I set it down on the laptop directly above the hard drive. Remember how I said it stuck it's stuck by a magnet. So I stuck a magnet on the hard drive of the brand new machine. I literally broke it before I got to use it at all. And Apple replaced it for me, but because I'm a moron. I do want to make an update to the European Union rule. What it gets you is 2-year warranty for faulty or non-conforming goods. So if you break it or it gets stolen, obviously not covered.
Or if it doesn't have USB-C.
Yes, exactly. And so, but the other thing I think people don't take into account with regular AppleCare is your ability to call Apple on the phone. And we all hate doing it. But I'm really glad they're there when you hate making phone calls.
Right, but it's unrelated. You can call Apple regardless of whether you have AppleCare. They say it, but they don't mean it. Or rather, they say it, but they don't mean the numbers.
You're saying you can have them help you with
anytime.
Man, they'll help you, or they'll say, hi, nice to meet you?
No, they'll help you. They'll help you. Apple support is not related to AppleCare.
My jaw is on the ground. Seriously?
Have you ever been asked for your AppleCare number when you call Apple?
No, but they ask for my serial number and they know I have AppleCare. 100%.
Yeah, there's no connection.
Now, I know it's a fool's errand to fact check Adam Engst, but I don't buy it.
Because half of the time you're not calling about a device. You're calling about some problem with macOS or HomeKit or something. There's no device
No, macOS isn't related to the device. You've got a problem with macOS. I thought you had to have AppleCare.
No. I mean, I had I haven't called Apple in a long time for general reasons, but, like, the last time I called them, I was having huge problems with HomeKit. I couldn't add Tanya to our home, um, and I didn't have AppleCare on HomePods or anything like that.
Yeah, that's true.
Really, they don't check. They don't check. They just don't. You don't if you're calling about a software problem, they're not asking for your serial number. There's no checking. They get nothing.
I don't believe there's no
they
checking.
benefit in
No, because they ask for the serial number. They're absolutely they see on their screen whether you've got AppleCare. Why do you think they don't?
it's never come up. I mean,
but you said you don't call them. So
until I got this MacBook Pro, I didn't have AppleCare for years before that on any Macs.
But did you call them?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, for years I called them once every year or two.
So this sounds like an anecdotal fact.
So it's I don't exactly know how you prove it, but you could call Apple and just ask them a question about something that does not involve a serial number.
Okay, here we go.
I'm really curious why it is that sleep mode on my Apple Watch is, whatever.
So
and you don't
complimentary
have on your Apple Watch.
I found an article.
Yeah.
From Apple, support article entitled Complimentary Support. What is complimentary support? Under software, complimentary software support provides telephone support for installation, launch, or reinstallation, not including data recovery when your hardware configuration meets minimum system requirements for the software. Complimentary support, Apple 1-year limited warranty, and AppleCare benefits are separate from and in addition to rights under consumer law, blah, blah, blah. And then it says, how much complimentary support do I get? You get it for 90 days, no longer if required by applicable law, or longer if applicable law. So they may have answered your questions on, I'm having trouble with Apple Pages on my MacBook Pro, it keeps crashing, but they're not required to do that by their own rules.
Basically, I have never heard of anyone calling Apple and being told we're not going to help you. Ever.
Okay.
I mean, obviously, if you're like, we're not going to help you because you're running macOS 9, it has to be something they're actually supporting. But if you call with a real problem with a modern device or operating system or something like that, they'll talk to you. They're not gonna hang up on you. Oh, I'm sorry. Too bad on you. So,
Well, there are also differences with if you have AppleCare on a what was the problem I had with I had headphones from them, call them AirPods, and I was able to have the new ones shipped to me before I shipped the old ones back because I had it under AppleCare, but I was still paying for the repair in that case. But I mean, it sounds like out of the goodness of their heart, they probably would help you up to a point. But according to complimentary support at apple.com, they don't need to do that.
As I said, I've literally never heard of anyone saying Apple refused to help me because I don't pay for AppleCare. People will occasionally get basically dinged by Apple because their problem is insoluble or they're a really real pain in the butt.
That one's me.
Yeah, right. I mean, and there's a guy who I know, an online person who I think he got a Mac Pro, a Lemon Mac Pro, and he's been fighting with Apple for years. And it's like he won't let it go. I mean, at some point, he can't prove that anything is really. He can't prove to Apple's satisfaction that enough is wrong for them to replace it or anything like that. And I think they've stopped talking to him. But
I actually had the same problem. I went a year and a half bothering them every couple of weeks.
That's right. You had a MacBook Pro?
Yeah, I ended up giving it to my daughter, and it doesn't misbehave for my daughter, and I got an M3 MacBook Pro, and it does not misbehave in the same way.
Yeah. So, but it's like, I think they do reserve the right to basically say, we're not going to help you personally because you're a pain in the butt.
Yeah, they don't actually do that. They just ghost you. They just stop answering. So you can start another call. and reference the first one, and you get another string of support for a couple of months, and then they ghost you. And then you start another one and another one. I have the records. I have the receipts. Well, anyway, so it doesn't sound like if you use a Mac, I probably wouldn't do AppleCare 1. Even if I didn't have multiple users on it at the time.
Yeah.
I probably wouldn't do it. So then you're down to, it's got to be, you have a phone and a watch.
And an iPad.
And an iPad and a Vision Pro of your own that no one has ever sneezed near.
Yeah, right. I mean, put it this way. If I had a Vision Pro, which I have no intention of having in any way, shape, or form for so many reasons, I would absolutely have AppleCare on it.
Oh, sure.
Big, weird, expensive device that you're going to set on couches, it's going to fall off within minutes. I mean, come on.
But AppleCare 1, I'm talking about AppleCare 1.
AppleCare 1. Oh, yeah, no, I would have AppleCare 1 on it instantly because it's cheaper.
Yeah, but that's pretty much the only one.
Yeah, right. You have to get pretty. I forgot. I looked at all the various prices at some point. When I was writing about it, and some of them are a little more expensive than you think. Like a Mac. I think the Mac Pro is pretty. Oh, the Pro. I think the Pro Display XDR is silly expensive too.
Well, that's because the Pro Display XDR is silly expensive.
Right. Expensive, precisely. That's just it. Is that so? If you've got a really expensive Mac, AppleCare Plus is really expensive, and AppleCare 1 makes a ton of sense.
So, I didn't think about that. Yeah. Well, does AppleCare scale with what you put into a MacBook Pro, or is a MacBook Pro always the same price? Like if you buy it with 4 terabytes or 512, is AppleCare the same price? I thought it was always the same
price.
Yeah.
It's always the same. So it's always, I'm getting to the site. Like if you buy a Mac, model pricing. So yeah, a Mac Pro is $17.99 a month. That's the most expensive one.
Well, I'm paying half that for a phone.
Doesn't matter what you get with it.
That's 4 years old. 3 years.
And the Pro Display XDR is also $17.99 a month.
Okay.
So if you have a significant workstation set up, with a Mac Pro and a Pro Display XDR, AppleCare 1 is going to be a good deal. But then you got to be super careful about the accounts.
I'm looking at a MacBook Pro connected to a Pro Display XDR right now. But I'm not going to do it because of John Siracusa. Or what Apple told John Siracusa, that doesn't work for multiple user accounts or multiple user Macs.
Yeah, could be dangerous. Then there's ones like, like the AirPods. It just feels like, with AppleCare 1, if you've got a slot, add them.
Yeah.
But it's $150 a month.
That's all it is
not
for
very much money.
Okay.
Yeah, for the AirPods and AirPods Pro and Beats. The AirPod Max is $3 a month. So, Apple scales all these things with the basic cost of the device. So it does make sense. But again, like an Apple TV or a HomePod, they sit very quietly. Like they don't go places.
Yeah.
They don't live risky lives.
But let's bring up something else. Speaking of extended warranties people hate, Best Buy has something they call Total Tech, which Steve and I called Total Tank because it was a joke from the movie Santa Claus. But anyway, with Total Tech, everything you buy, you get this extended warranty on it. And it has been highly effective in getting us to buy more things from Best Buy. It started with a giant TV we bought. The cost of Total Tech for the year was less than the cost of installation of the TV, and it came with installation of the TV, so it was a good deal. But once we had it, we started going, well, hey, I could buy this here or here. I'm going to buy it at Best Buy because I get a warranty on it. We buy stuff for our kids on that, and we bought an ice maker for our daughter and son-in-law, and it was a very, very expensive ice maker, and it died inside of a year, and we had the extended warranty, and it worked. So when I wanted to buy an Apple Watch for my 9-year-old grandson, I bought it through Total Tech because I knew I was going to get that warranty, so I didn't have to pay AppleCare on it. And I'm guessing he's going to break it. Just spitballing here. And it's real AppleCare, too. It's not the Best Buy extended warranty. It's actually AppleCare through Best Buy. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
With all of these things, there are. I mean, as you said, like the installation, you can run into those situations where, like, why, yes, that makes sense. I will sign up for that instantly, because it's going to work out for you. But yeah, I find. I mean, it is interesting because I think AppleCare is really useful to have for certain devices because it's so easy. And I mean, if you particularly with Best Buy, if you're getting true AppleCare, that's great. One of the other things I've always been a little dubious of is like, well, you got this extended warranty, and like when time comes to use it, will they really honor it?
Yeah.
Or will there be some catch that you didn't expect or some hidden cost or whatnot? And AppleCare, again, there are costs here. Basically, you're paying AppleCare so that if you damage things or lose them, the fees will be lower, much, much, much lower. But if you break a screen, you're still paying Apple. I forget what the numbers are. $29 a month, $29 to replace the screen.
Casey Liss calls himself Caseless Casey Liss on the Accidental Tech podcast. And he recently broke his screen, and he did the express replacement where you get a replacement and then you stick it in the box and send it back. And they charged him more than if he had just sent it in and gotten the new one back. And I don't know that it was a lot more, like maybe $40 or something like that, maybe $60, but it was significantly more.
I'm looking at the service fees page, and it doesn't say anything about that.
Yeah, do you see express replacement in there?
No, it's not listed in that. But it does, it's $29 for screen or back glass damage, $99 for other accidental damage, and $149 for theft or loss for an iPhone.
Oh, so you still did pay $149. But if it's an $1,100 phone, that's a real good deal.
Precisely.
You bring up a good thing on looking at the fine print on how companies do these other kinds of warranties. I remember a friend of my daughter's had the Verizon warranty on her iPhone, and when her phone got broken, she was told she would get a like device. Like it might not even be an iPhone.
Yeah, iPhone, right. It's a phone.
Wait, what? Yeah, it was going to be a phone similar, but it wasn't like her phone getting repaired or a direct swap. So yeah, that was years and years ago. I don't know that that's still true or if they even offer that, but it's an illustration of, I think, what Adam was trying to say.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, all these things, they're really, it's actually kind of an interesting exercise to go through when you're thinking about this, because it tells you so much about yourself in terms of like what your risk aversion is, and where like what are those numbers where you're just like, ooh, that's too much. Like for me, $1,100, that feels too much. Whereas an Apple TV at $149, whatever. Like I could replace that in a heartbeat. If I don't know, a meteorite fell on it or something. So like, I don't know what could possibly hurt my Apple TV. I'm not even sure I can see my Apple TV. I mean, it's like it's behind the TV itself.
Now we do unplug ours and take them on trips, so maybe ours live a riskier life, but
yours get to see the world.
Literally, one thing I haven't said is how much the Best Buy, and they don't call it Total Tech anymore anyway, but we still call it Total Tech, is $180 per year. I've got a 75-inch TV on it, the Apple Watch, our Sony receiver, the ice maker is still on there. Some Western Digital drives. I've got our Eero network on there, my very expensive color laser printer, and let's see, a subwoofer, and our DJI Mic 2 and DJI Osmo Pocket 3. So we've got 10 very expensive devices on that for $179 a year. Now,
and you could buy all your Macs through there too.
Yeah, the problem is I always want them on day one. And I don't know, Best Buy gets stuff on day one, or the iPhone, I want it right away.
Right.
Can't be getting it the day after, Adam. Jeez. Come on.
I been there, done that. That first Friday delivery when the UPS guy shows up.
Oh, chasing him down the street because you were in the shower at the time. Yeah, there you go. Well, this has been a good discussion, and I learned a lot more about what the current state of AppleCare is. I thought I understood it, but you've, as always, educated me, and I'm sure educated the audience. If people want to keep up with all of your wonderful wisdom, how would they possibly do that, Adam?
There's this thing called the internet. It's really great. I have to say,
You
I
think
am
it's gonna
so
be
in favor
something?
of the internet. I think it's gonna catch on. So once you log onto the internet, you can go to a website. These are the coolest things, these websites called Tibbets.com. It's a funny name, I know, but they've all got funny names because we don't have to remember the numbers anymore.
Oh, that's so cool. It's so cool. It's come such a long way from those numbers. All right, Adam, thanks again as always.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Wait, before you go, because I know you're all going to fast forward because of all the credit stuff where you learn how to contact me and nobody listens to the end of the podcast anyway. But don't forget that during the live Apple event at 10 a.m. Pacific time on Tuesday, September 9th, we will all be in the live chat room, which you can get to by going to podfeed.com/chat. And that'll take you into Discord. If you've already been there before, you got an account, whatever. It's free to get in. There's no walls or anything to jumping, no hoops to jump through to get through, except for the fact that Discord's probably going to ask you to update about 18 times. Anyway, Steve and I will be in there. We'll all be just text chatting. There won't be us in voice at all. So you'll be able to listen to the show from Apple, but be able to talk to all the other lovely No-Silla castaways. And I hope you'll join us there. Now you can fast forward because here comes the ending. That's going to wind us up for this week. Did you know you can email me at allison@podfeet.com anytime you like? You know what? I need some more dumb questions. I want some easy questions, some softballs, some stuff I can answer. That'd be really fun. Let's see. Remember, everything good does start with podfeet.com. You can follow me on Mastodon at podfeet.com/Mastodon. If you want to listen to the podcast on YouTube, you know the cool kids are all on YouTube, podfeet.com/YouTube. If you want to join the conversation, you can talk to in our Slack community at podfeet.com/Slack. Again, all the other lovely No-Silla castaways are in there. It's awesome. Bart even stops by from time to time. You can support the show at podfeet.com/Patreon. Like all of these long-term people that we've been talking about are just such great heroes of the show. Or if you want to do a one-time donation, go to podfeet.com/donate. You can use Apple Pay, any credit card. Or you can use podfeet.com/PayPal. And if you want to join in the fun of the live show, head on over to podfeet.com/live on Sunday nights at 5 p.m. Pacific time and join the friendly and enthusiastic No-Silla castaways. Thanks for listening and stay subscribed.